Now we're rolling. Damage Plan MMA podcast. I'm Jason, as always. My main man, Zack. Partridge in the house. What up, dog?
What up?
Got another Fighter Spotlight podcast to do. This time we are welcoming Nicole Fuga to the podcast. She will be fighting June 25th at the Maverick Center, Fierce Fighting Championship 20. If you did not watch Fierce Fighting Championship 19, I suggest you go watch Nicole's fight because it was hands down fight of the night. Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Zack and I talk about it. We tell everybody about it. There was no losers in that fight, so we're honored to have you back. It's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Nicole, what did you learn from your first fight?
Oh my gosh, so much. I did get a lot of good feedback after the fight. Seriously, it was like an adrenaline rush. Even afterwards, like having people come up after and being like, "Oh my gosh, you did so great. Here's some great things that you did." But in my mind, I was just taking from it like, don't ever like, and my coaches too were like, "Don't leave it. This is why we don't leave it up to the judges because you can get something like that where your opponent, you guys are such a good matchup where everything is down to like looking for pieces of points out there." And so yeah, that's definitely something I learned from that fight. But there's a lot of other things that I was focusing on after the fight too, that I was like, man, and even watching it back and listening to the commentary on it with Jason and Cody, and I was like, I do jujitsu, like that's my thing, that's my main strength, and I didn't utilize it. I mean, I used some of it, but in my mind I wasn't thinking like switch things over to jujitsu once we're on the ground. I was still thinking striking, and so a lot of that is that's what I have been working on for this fight camp is working on transitioning that thought process over to use my strengths. I definitely learned to kind of pace myself a little bit more. I think in that one, I was just so excited to be in the cage that I was just, who cares? Just go all in. And so this one, I do want to be able to be a little bit more controlled and a little bit more tactical in the way that I do things, and like the combos that we put together and that kind of stuff. So definitely a lot of learning from that experience.
It's hard to blend jujitsu with fighting sometimes, right? Like we're so used to just rolling, right? Go touch hands, roll, and then mixing in the punches and settling into positions to cause damage or threaten submissions or whatever. Like that is something that I think, for the most part, at least from my experience, it takes time to learn that. And everything's just different in the cage. It's why cage time is so valuable. I would say this. I saw my biggest growth after my second fight going 3 rounds. Your first fight, you went all 3 rounds. I think that's super valuable because that's good cage time. To learn. The more cage time you have, the more you learn, because you could train as much as you want. It's always different in the cage.
Oh yeah, for sure. It really is.
So Nicole, I have a question. I saw a picture on your Facebook, and you have quite an amazing transformation. What caused that transformation? Was it MMA that helped with that transformation? Talk a little bit about that because it's freaking amazing.
Oh, you're so kind. No, I think so. It happened back in 2017 was the initial like thought process change of everything, where my husband and I were kind of talking, and we were kind of like at a comfortable position in our lives where we were okay financially, and we were okay with like a lot of things in our lives, but we were kind of just coasting. And I was like, man, I feel like I was one of those girls that like sat on Pinterest all the time and like pinned all these different workouts that you can do and pinned all these different diets and recipes and things like that. I just pinned them, but I didn't follow through with them. It wasn't until 2017 where I was like, you know what, I do need to put a little bit more effort into my own physical health and my own, like everything. I kind of started working on everything from mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, like everything, and just working on everything at that time. And so we started there, and I lost, I signed up with my husband has some family that are out of New Zealand, and they are personal trainers. So they were able to set us up with meal plans and workout plans as well. We did a 12-week program with them. And during that 12 weeks, I lost my first 40 pounds. I started off at 260. So lost my first 40 pounds there. We were originally our goal was like, we had a friend's wedding that we were going to go for. And so we wanted to like lose some weight and look good for that. So we did that. And then I just kept on going. I was, playing just volleyball on the side. I've always kind of been active. So as the weight started to creep up, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But once I started losing it again, I was like, hey, I feel better. I move better. Like just my everyday life was a lot better as far as like I slept better. I just was making more conscious decisions on the type of foods that I was eating and that kind of thing. So we started there, and then just slowly over time, I was like, man, I do want to do something else besides just weight lift and work out, but I didn't know what to do. It wasn't until 2020 where I was at the end of my 4th pregnancy, right before I had my baby, and I watched Jacek and Weili Zhang, their fight.
Yep.
And it was like one of the most amazing female fights I've ever seen in UFC. In the UFC.
No. Not one of the most best female fights ever. That's one of the top 3 fights ever, period.
Ever.
Male or female. It was incredible.
Yeah.
So after watching that fight and then seeing how they both, like what they looked like after the fight, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. I showed the picture to my husband, and he goes, you want to do that? And I was like, well, I don't want to. He says, you want somebody to do that to you? And I said, no, I want to do that to somebody else.
You give her a Megamind head?
Yeah. So then I just kind of, I was like, hey, I do want to get into MMA and that kind of stuff. So I didn't really know where to start. So I started looking for gyms in the area. Wasatch was one of the more popular ones that came up. The Pit was another one, but I'm down in Utah County, so the Pit wasn't really an option for me. And then there was another gym that happened to be really close by, and was getting good reviews. And then I also had some friends recommend Agima to me, and so off of those recommendations, and I was like, hey, that happens to be the closest gym to my house. Let's go check it out. So I get in there, and my first day in, I was like, I met Dane, and I said, hey, I'm signing up. I'm super excited for this. Like, I want to start into MMA. I want to do this. And he goes, okay, all right. Like, he was so nice about it, but I could tell like he was just being nice. Yeah. And he's like, okay, cool. We'll get you signed up and we'll see how things go.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until after I started training jujitsu. As soon as I started training, that was my first day. And then I started going like 6 days a week. And I was like, let's throw in striking in there as well, because they offer that. So might as well, since we can take as many classes as we want. So I started adding that in. And then like 3 months in, I was like, hey, Dane, I'm going to go into this jujitsu competition. Won my first jujitsu competition. Then took a couple more after that, kept winning. And so I was like, Dane, I think I'm ready to like start in MMA. And he's like, yeah. I think we're good. Let's start looking for your opponents. It was October. So April of 2021 is when I started training. Okay. And then October of 2021 is when we started looking for opponents. But at the time I was still looking 160 because I came in at like 190. I came into the gym at like 190. And so I was still looking to lose a little bit of weight. And I was like, hey, if I have like an end goal in mind, maybe that's where I'll get a little bit more motivation. So they were like, yeah, we'll start looking for you some fights. And so it was October. So I was like, okay, let me start dropping more weight. And then nothing came through. And it wasn't that they weren't coming through, but they were offering. At the time, I'm 0-0. And so they're offering me people who were a lot more experienced. I actually think Sasha was one of the people that they originally offered me, but because my coaches didn't know where I was performance-wise, then they didn't want to put me in the cage with somebody who had so much experience. Yeah. And so we turned that one down originally. And then it wasn't until the May card, April 30th card. Yeah. that one where they were like, you know what, I think you've got her. Like, I think you're good. You've got enough experience between your jiu-jitsu competitions and all the striking classes that we have. I think you're good. I think you're good to go. We did a couple of live rounds going into that fight too, and so I think it helped Dane build a little bit more confidence in me. But yeah, so from the start of 260 and then weighing in for those fights, I was 159. So that was
So awesome.
100 pounds down from my heaviest weight.
So I did the same thing.
Yep.
Nicole?
Yeah.
I was 270 when I walked into my first MMA gym over 5 years ago. And then when I fought for the 170 title, I was 268 at my heaviest, and I actually made sure my first time I weighed in for 170, I was below 168 so that I could say I lost 100 pounds.
Yeah, that's where I was. That's awesome.
So I get that. So I'm going to circle back to one thing you said, because when Dane's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Now that you've been around long enough, though, too, it's because we see people on a monthly basis be like, I'm going to be an MMA fighter. I want to go to the UFC. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's like, all right, cool. And they train for like a week or two, and then we never see them again. I'm sure you've seen it now. So now but just so people understand why, like, Dane wasn't, we just hear it all the time.
Yes, no, that's exactly what I had that conversation with him, because I'm not afraid to be confrontational. So I asked him, I was like, hey, did you think when I signed up that first day that I was serious? And he goes, honestly, we get so many people in that I can't take people seriously until they show me the work. And he said, and you've earned that. So you've worked super hard.
I have a jiu-jitsu coach, no lie, and he'd say it himself. He won't even learn your name unless he's been seeing you for about 3 months come into the gym. He's like, I don't even bother. He goes, most people just quit so fast. I don't even bother. But if I see you coming for like 2-3 months, he goes, I'll learn your name then.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that caught me on Agima, was not that I had tried out any other gyms, but it really was super inviting. Like, everyone from like fight team members to jiu-jitsu to striking, like, everyone, when I would come into the gym, there would be at least 3 or 4 people that would call me by my name, because you roll with the people. So you shake hands and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. And I know there's tons of other gyms, because I've actually tried rolling at other gyms as well when I've been out of town, and I'll just go in for like a drop-in session. And so I know that's like a jiu-jitsu community thing. But yeah, everyone knew my name. Then after getting into fight team, then the fight team's been super, not just then, but before then as well. The fight team's been super supportive.
That's awesome.
So
what do you know about your opponent, Alicia Willows?
Not a lot. Honestly, as soon as I found out who she was, I knew she had fought Sasha in the past, because I was just kind of looking up Sasha's history. When I was going against her. So I knew she had fought Sasha, and I knew that she had lost second round knockout. And so that's really all I knew. I know that she's from Wyoming. And so we checked out, just the gym that she trains out of. It seems like she has a lot of jiu-jitsu history, maybe. I don't know that she has a jiu-jitsu record online anywhere, because I did check out Smooth Comp. I try to do as much homework on my opponents as I can. So I would assume she has a strong jiu-jitsu background with a little bit of striking put in, but I feel like that's similar to what I have as well. So I think it would be a good matchup.
I think it's a good matchup.
Yeah, it's a good
bias though. So what is your game plan? Not to divulge too much. How do you see the fight going on June 25th? You're not allowed to say with my hand raised.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give more than that.
Gotta give us a read. Gotta give us a
So if the fight goes my way, I would like to be able to show a little bit more controlled striking. Cool. Obviously use the amazing wrestling and grappling that we're taught there. We've got Court in the gym as well. So we've got some great wrestling coaches that are in there. So I would like to be able to use some of that with our takedowns, utilize the takedowns that I know that I can use. I didn't use them as often as I could have in my last fight. Again, I was thinking mostly striking. So I would like to be able to utilize those and be able to see when those can be fit in, capitalize on the positions that I get when we are on the ground. And I honestly would like to finish with a submission if I could. I think that would be awesome. If she's strong in jiu-jitsu, I think that would be an awesome win, to win with a submission against a tough jiu-jitsu opponent.
What's your go-to? What's your go-to submission?
I'm really mad about this. It's a head and arm, which I didn't take
Really?
advantage of in my last fight.
Yeah, there was some positions there. I remember that.
That's my out of my 13 submissions that I have, that I think I finished it with that one like 7 times.
Oh wow! So you've competed
What's your move?
quite often.
Yeah.
You've competed a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I think I have 4 tournaments that I've competed in, but only 3 are on record.
So I have a question, because we talked. I've talked to your coaches, obviously, and you a little bit about, you know, potential matchups for this card and whatever, and talked about potentially fighting anywhere from this 145 to 155. What do you think is going to be your weight class that, like, that's your home?
I think dropping down to 145, because I wanted this one to be a 145 fight, honestly, because I think that I can keep my strength and drop the weight. And so I think that my strength is what I would allow me some dominance in the 145 weight class. So I think that would be, something that I'd like to pursue.
Sweet.
Nice.
Well, I'll keep looking for 145ers then. 145ers then. What's your end goal in MMA? Like, do you want to go pro? Do you want to go to the UFC? Do you like, or is it just like a fight by fight, take it one fight at a time thing?
So originally when I told my husband I want to do that, it was supposed to be a bucket list thing. And so I was like, I just want to
7 fights later.
Time. Yeah. I just want to do it one time and say that I tried, and then that's it. But now that I've gotten a taste for it, I'm in it. Like, my husband asked me the same thing, because I'm kind of torn. I still want to have kids. I've got 4 kids, but I still want to have a couple more. But my husband's like, you're kind of in like this stage where you kind of got to choose, do you want kids right now or do you want to fight right now? Because both of them are like on a time crunch. So I don't know. I feel like if I want it, I can get it. Like, I will go pro. I think that's what I'll do. For sure, I'm going pro, but I need to decide. I'm torn. I really am torn. I need to decide, because I know that now, having seen where I was to see where I am now, I know that if I want it, I can get it. And so I just got to make the decision. I know for sure we're going pro. Who knows where we'll go after that.
So what does your husband think about all this?
He initially he was like, yeah, we'll do it. As soon as I told him I wanted to do it, he's like, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that you make it to practices, but the kids are taken care of and that kind of stuff. He's been super supportive through the whole thing. But he does get super nervous. At first he was like, don't get hurt. Please don't mess up your pretty face. But he was like super nervous for me for my first fight. He said, as soon as they announced that the fights were starting, then I just, like, my nerves were through the roof. I just had the jitters. Like, I couldn't think of like anything else, but like, hopefully everything ends up okay. Not that he didn't have confidence in me that I would do some damage, but he didn't want, nobody knew like what my potential was or what I could do. So he didn't know what to think from that.
Does he train at all with you?
He does not. He wrestled in high school, but that's about the extent of his martial arts, and that's it.
So my next question was going to be, how many head and arm chokes have you gotten him in?
Technically none. If you've seen my husband has like some broad shoulders. I cannot get that guy in a head and arm. But I have, as soon as I started learning some stuff in jiu-jitsu, I was able to get him in a crucifix. And so if we were at MMA, I got him in the crucifix and I could have just landed some on him. But so we do wrestle around a little bit, but we not too much, because the kids do get like, be careful. They get scared.
That's awesome. So Nicole, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to, sponsors, family?
Yes, of course. My mom and dad have been super supportive through everything that I've done.
Awesome.
I am in a family of 8 kids, and for my last fight, 7 of my siblings were there. So 7 of us were there. One of them couldn't make it because his wife also coaches volleyball, and they had a volleyball tournament, but they were able to stream it. So I'm so grateful for that. But so my siblings were there, my parents were there. I have a super supportive family on both sides, my side and my husband's side. I've just recently gained some new sponsors with Omega Financial, and also Koa Warrior Nutrition. So they're the ones who have been providing me with some of my supplements and stuff recently. I also have Foundation Chiropractic. They have an office in Lehigh and one in Orem as well. And the Resilient brand, they also offer supplements as well. And so those are my current sponsors. We're working on some future ones as well. But again, grateful for everything that everyone has done, especially at Agima, for all the patience that everyone has had with me in my training, and the things that they've taught me. Man, I would not be where I am without the coaches that we have and my teammates too.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, we are super excited to have you on the card. June 25th, Fierce Fighting Championship 20 at the Maverick Center. Go to fiercefightingchampionship.com, click on Nicole's picture, get your tickets if you haven't gotten them already. We're super excited, Nicole. Super excited to have you back on the card.
Thanks, Jason.
We will see you in 2 weeks.
See you guys.
We are out.